My name is Lee Chow. I was born in 1950 in Washington, D.C. at Sibley Hospital.
Growing up in the area, I grew up in an all-black neighborhood. From what I understand, that's why some people say I have a Southern accent, because I grew up with black folks that all came from the South. And I asked them, when I was talking to them, where they came from. And they come from Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi, all around that area. But I gotta say, being Chinese, living in an all-black neighborhood was not always a good experience. I had plenty of good black friends. I really had really good black friends. But there's quite a few black folks that always remind me that I was different. Because I always hear it. Ching, ching, Chinaman sitting on the fence trying to make $1, 15 cents. And that annoyed me to no end. I kept hearing all the time. And it got to the point where my mom and dad, we'd be walking down the street or around the neighborhood, and I'd tell them, don't speak Chinese, because they would make fun of us, And so at that time period, I was not proud to be Chinese. I just felt out of place because I was always reminded that I was different. People called me, I got in a fight a few times. I didn't know how to fight. I would just swing, I got in a fight a few times, and I got jumped by like 4 guys one time. And I didn't know how to fight, but I got beat up. Well, my Sunday school teacher handed me this book. He gave me a book because, I think I was talking to him about being bullied or and he gave me this book on karate. And he said, just check it out. He gave me this book. He said, these are, fighting techniques from Asia. It's Japanese, but it's good to learn. I looked at it, and I didn't study it in depthly, but I looked at it and to understand the movements. And I didn't quite understand it because nobody taught me. And I think through my father and him, I think I heard the term Kung Fu. Because the Cantonese and Toisanese call it Kung Fu. The Mandarin call it Kung Fu. But Kung Fu is what most people know it. And actually, Kung Fu and Kung Fu means working man to the point where you hone a skill. That's what it really means. And it just sort of referred to the martial arts indirectly, because that's what you got to do in order to, for your skills to mature to a higher level. And so it wasn't until when I was in high school, when I went to McKinley Tech, and I think it's my first month there, it was by happenstance. I was walking in the hallway, going towards the gym, and I saw a crowd in the hallway looking at this guy, and I was looking at him, and he was doing martial art movements. And I looked at him, and he looked at me. He noticed I was Asian, and he started talking to me. And I told him I was Chinese, and he said, oh yeah, I practice Kung Fu. I said, what? I said, yeah. So, my eyes lit up, and we started conversing. He invited me to practice with him. And I got to know Josephus Colvin, and I called him, his nickname is Kung Fu Joe. And so I started practicing with him at Banneker. It was a loose group of us: Spanish Joe, Jimmy Yee, Kung Fu Joe, and William Brooks. We used to all hang out together and work out whenever we can. Rock Creek Park, Meridian Hill Park, or Malcolm X Park, or some other park. I work out with friends at Turkey Thicket and other places. So we had a lot of informal workout in somebody's backyard or a parking lot. And through William Brooks, we started working out with Robert W. Smith. He taught Tai Chi. He was a Marine guy that worked at the, I think it was either CIA or FBI, but I think it was CIA. And he lived in Bethesda, Maryland. And he worked out every Saturday morning at the YMCA. And he also taught us a basic Shaolin form the basic yin yi or xing yi and bagua form. So we just practiced whenever we could. We worked out at various areas in Rock Creek Park. You know, Kung Fu Joe and I. And what happened was, he was talking to me about Bondo. Bondo is Burmese karate, and he mentioned that Mas Nishida was the sensei or the teacher, and Hoi Q Lee was his assistant. My friend Lester Lee went to school at Hoi Q, and he said Hoi Q would get into a lot of fights at school. And when I talked to Hoi Q about it, he said, yeah, when you learn, you know, from what I understand, what he says that when he learned a technique, he wanted to try it out, so he'd pick a fight with somebody. And I went to a lot of tournaments with Hoi Q when we were in Bondo, and that guy can fight. Man, he was a good fighter. And even Kung Fu Joe said, you got to look at that guy, I mean, watch him fight, you know. And when he sparred in class, in Bondo class, I watch him fight. I watch him, you know, watch his technique. And when we go to tournaments, I remember he had this really fast sidekick. And when everybody tried to charge in at him, this sidekick would shoot right out and stop him. I mean, really fast sidekick. But anyway, Hoi Q could fight. He opened up a school on I Street. I forgot the address, but it was I Street near Chinatown, a block away from Chinatown. But yeah, so we worked out there, and it was Hoi Q that taught there. He taught there for 1 year, maybe a year or beyond a year, because when I was there, I learned Little Tiger, Flowery Fizz, Goon Lick. I learned a broadsword form, and I started on a stick form, and I learned a little bit more than half of it. And then it's like a year or so later, Dean Chen came aboard, and he took over, and Hoi Q left. And so that was my form in terms of, you know, working out with all the people, Kung Fu, karate people at the time period. It's amazing to me that the culture, the Chinese culture, created such a unique and interesting fighting style. And I like doing it, I don't want to be a killer. I don't want to fight anybody. I like it for self-defense, but mainly because it's a beautiful art. It's intricate. The movements are beautiful. I like the hand movements, the kicks, tornado kicks, swallowtail kicks, and it's unique. And every style is unique. I like looking at the Southern style. I learned a little bit about the Southern style, the Southern hand techniques like in Wing Chun, and they're unique and practical, and the theories behind it. Each style has a different theory of how to do things. You know, like the Wing Chun style, they have the center line. You fight from the center line in certain angles, and you look at the Hung Gar style. They use animal techniques, and it's hard. It's more muscular, and then you look at the Northern style. They have more sweeps, jumps, kicks, wide sweeping movements. Beautiful movements that very acrobatic, and that's why you see a lot of it in Chinese opera. But no style is the end all and be all. I found out through practicing and interviewing other people and learning about all the various styles, no style has all the answers. Some style emphasize mostly hands, and other combination of both, and some styles just emphasize low kicks, to middle, to the hip area, to the lower legs, and others high above, to the head. A lot of styles have around 20 forms. That's a lot of freaking forms. Every style is unique, and also I found out throughout the years that no style is pure. Every style evolved. I don't think Wing Chun looked like it does in modern time when it did a few hundred years ago, or some other style like Tiger and Crane. And so no style is pure. They always seem to be evolving. So, I like doing that because it keeps me, in touch with my culture, I guess. It makes me feel Chinese, I guess. You know, growing up, a lot of black kids used to tease me. Well, they don't now. They said, I remember sitting at riding on the bus, going down 7th Street one time, and I got surrounded by a bunch of kids. And they started looking at me and talking to me. And they said, and one of them was joking with me, said, I can take my hand and rip your heart out. And I said to him, you're watching too many Kung Fu movies. You know, not all of it's real. And so, and they asked me, do I know anything? I said, well, I practice a little bit. I'm not a master at it, but I know a little bit. If I have to use it, I'm going to use it. But yeah, I remember surrounded by like 3 or 4 kids at the back of the bus, and they left me alone. But and so what I found was that since Kung Fu became so popular, especially when the advent of the appearance of Bruce Lee, and a lot of kids, a lot of people, especially young kids, they respect Kung Fu, and that I found that I had a lot more black friends that understand Kung Fu because they appreciate the Chinese culture because of it.